This is Transqat, a safe space to stand. Transgender issues, queer people, respectful conversations. I'm host Clare McCarthy. Welcome to Transqat. This episode of Transqat is available in video format on our YouTube channel. Go to youtube.com/@transcat9607 or just search for Transqat channel. That's TRANSQAT. Today's episode dovetails nicely with the previous one. Both are about wellness, and while we discussed mental health and spirituality with the people of Fox and Feather Healing Arts, today we're focusing on physical well-being. Aleia Hayes is a fitness coach and a trans man and a terrific guy. Before we get to the discussion, though, here's something that happened to me this week. I think sometimes people just want to know what they should not say when dealing with a trans person. Here's a great example. I went into a local gaming store. Now, I am not a gamer. A friend once tried to get me into D&D, but I just don't have the mindset for it. I needed some advice about pricing a box of Magic the Gathering cards we had bought at Book Barn, so I figured I'd stop in and ask. Woman behind the counter says she's about to go into a meeting and that she'd have Jonathan, not his real name, help me. She calls across the store to Jonathan and says, "Can you help this, person?" There was a pause in the sentence big enough to drive an 18-wheeler through. I said quietly, "Woman." But she didn't respond, so I said it again. "I'm a woman, you can call me that." She said, and this is the part that warms my cockles, "Whatever, I said person, that pretty much covers it." As the Calamity Jane character in Deadwood says, every day takes figuring out all over again how to fucking live.
It's okay.
That's right. Okay, so, well, that means I have to ask. So your phone name is Egg.
Yeah, it was like a couple. I was actually I was debating on changing my name and I couldn't decide, and I was just like tossing back and forth different names because I never changed my name from my name assigned at birth, and I just couldn't deal with the thought of changing everything, so I just changed my phone name to Egg. Whatever I choose, doesn't matter.
Well, I was debating whether or not to ask you about that, because when Beck sent out the message that you were interested in connecting, I had that moment of disconnect. I was like, well, that's sort of a femme name, but...
Yeah, it's hard because my name is Aleia, but it's spelled, Aleia. And my name doesn't bring me dysphoria. My dad, it's a name that he picked for me. I think because it's a unique spelling, I've never seen anyone with the spelling of my name. So it doesn't make me dysphoric, but it does definitely, like you said, it gives people a pause. And that's what bothers me because, I'll pass in public, but then people will see my name and they'll almost trip over themselves. So I've been, testing out. I've told a couple of people that I'm trying out the nickname of Leo because it kind of could be a nickname of my name.
Right.
And that way I wouldn't have to change my name, and people that know me can still call me Aleia, but I've been testing introducing myself as that to a couple of people because it doesn't get them to trip up.
It's interesting, the conversations I've had with trans folks whose chosen names are out of respect for their parents, that you were talking about. And I know of folks who have gone to their parents and said, well, what were you going to name me if I had been this person,
The hard part is I think that I didn't. So I think that I think it would have been Ben, and I don't like that name. I think it's cool, but I just don't think it fits me. So I don't know. I definitely could ask them about it, but I've been kind of I don't know. It just seems like a lot, and also I know that right now the name change process in the United States is kind of stressful. So
yeah. More than kind of. Yeah.
Yes. My name is Aleia, and I am 23 years old, and I'm from Connecticut, and I'm a trans man. I came out 2 years ago, and this year, after I graduated college, I started my own personal training business specifically for the LGBT community called mascfitlab.
Do you have a space for this, or do you go to your clients?
I feel like I have so many different modes of training at this point, which is great. But if people are local, like in the lower Connecticut, like River Valley, I will go to their house, if they feel comfortable with that. And I actually have like a trunk full of equipment, like dumbbells and, I always say you can do your cardio outside. So unless it's like super cold, we do that. And then I also work at Coastline Fitness, which is a gym chain in like Southern Connecticut. So they have three locations in Clinton, Saybrook, and East Lyme. And I also train in person there. So that's sort of what I offer. And then I also actually do online training, which is pretty cool because I'm just about to graduate one of my clients who lives in Berlin, which is crazy
Oh,
that I could go so far.
wow. Berlin, Connecticut or Berlin, Germany?
No, Germany. Yeah, I have another client in Minnesota. I just have one in California. It's pretty cool.
How does that work online training? So you're almost like I don't know that I'm blanking on the name, but like a Peloton type of thing where it's you're
Yeah,
doing something while they're watching the screen.
kind of. It's so there's two different modes of virtual training. Some people would like to do, I can actually do Zoom sessions with people, but that necessitates them to buy equipment. And I know that like sometimes that can be like a cost barrier for some people. And also just like those sessions are more expensive. So with the asynchronous type of training, I prescribe them their exercises in an app. So like there's videos of me like walking through all the like how to do an exercise, the common mistakes, and then they can like it's basically like step by step they go through their workout, they check it off, and then every week we do like a 30-minute virtual check-in on how they're doing, which is fun.
What distinguishes, what separates what you're doing with the trans community from what you would find in just kind of a generic gym or fitness center?
Yeah, that's a good question because it's actually under a lot of fire right now in the personal training community. There's a whole like a couple of trainers in the fitness space that do online training for like queer and trans people, and a lot of people are actually really mad at them because they're like, you know, bodies are all like human bodies. So like a training program that would work for like a regular cis man would work for a trans man. And it's like, that's true. I would never, argue with you. A program meant to create a more masculine physique for a man like a cis man would absolutely work for a trans man and trans masc person. But I think the reason that it's different is that I feel like I have a unique perspective into the problems that trans people face. Like the postural issues are like a huge thing.
Hmm.
Like a lot of trans men have truly the worst posture I've ever seen in my life. It's it's just from like years of conditioning and being like, oh, I have to hide, especially my pre-top surgery guys.
Right, right.
So
Yeah, that wear the bulky sweatshirt and kind of
mhm.
maybe carry the backpack in front.
Yeah, dysphoria hoodie all the way. It's hard, but it can cause like a lot of pain, and then also like there's certain things that can be super dysphoria inducing. Like you don't really think about it, but like any kind of movement that is supposed to strengthen like the hips, like it's important to do those things because you don't want to create like muscle imbalances, but if it for like it might create a little dysphoria or you might feel kind of feminine doing them, and I feel like a cis trainer wouldn't really understand those kinds of feelings, so I
So
feel like
you
that's
can
the benefit.
anticipate it and sort of say, look, you might feel this going into it, but stick with it.
Yeah, yeah. Or even like I'll hear them out and I sort of, I try to tailor my programs to like, we're not trying to make your hips any bigger, I swear. Like, but still some of these exercises are just important for overall strength. And like, so I try to, explain the science behind that and everything.
Do you find folks coming to you out of just I mean, they happen to be trans, but they're looking for just kind of a generic fitness place where they're going to be able to be comfortable, with somebody they can feel comfortable with, or are people coming to you specifically to pursue the kind of body that they wanted? So like a traditionally masculine build, or a particularly feminine one for trans femmes.
Yeah, I think Interesting. I think that people come to me because a lot of I feel like queer people like are looking for a queer trainer, and I think that is a lot of how they find me. Like they get content, like I post a lot on social media, so they'll, you know, get content that's similar and then they'll find me and then they'll reach out. But a lot of times they are like looking to build that body like that they're looking for. Like they're not just I always say like my goal first is to get you functional and strong, but then, you know, second is to create, you know, the body that you want that like aligns with your gender identity, which is like plays into how I like design my programs. And it's definitely like very person to person because not everyone is, you know, just like I'm a trans woman or a trans man, you know, there's such a spectrum. So that's, I like to,
Yeah.
you know, really infield what people want for themselves before I just start going at it.
So let me throw myself under the bus here. So I am a 63-year-old trans woman. Have I used to be? I was a marathoner. I ran 6 days a week.
That's awesome.
So I used to be quite fit. And
Mhm.
in the last, I mean, really since COVID, um, the exercise has almost completely dropped off.
Mhm.
I do a lot of stress eating.
Yes.
And
Well, stressful time right now.
yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
And winter, I'm awful for that. But
Yes.
I've been noticing that my body seems to be putting on the fat in what I would consider a masculine way.
Mhm.
More of the pot belly than what maybe a cis woman where she would store her
Yeah.
fat.
Yeah.
Um, so I come to you, and this is my situation. I know I'm
Yeah.
putting you on the spot, and
No,
I'm
no.
not paying you.
Listen, well, hey, I do free consults, so all my consults are free anyway. So I don't know if you are on HRT, but you are okay because that does change things. You know, I always gotta ask him like, so when you're on HRT, usually it does change the way that fat distributes in your body. You know, it obviously like if you're on testosterone, it tends to pack more in the belly and the stomach, and if you are on estrogen, it theoretically should, you know, go more into the hips and all that kind of stuff, maybe like the upper chest, all that. But unfortunately, sometimes our bodies just, you know, they don't always it affects everyone differently. And so even you could be on the perfect hormone balance and it's still like I still find that I'm always feeling like things are going to my hips. And I think that two people hyper focus on it as well. And that also just happens though, as people age, it does tend to go more towards the stomach as well. It can also be like an age thing. But what I would tell you, or sort of what we'd work at, is unfortunately you cannot spot reduce fat, which stinks. I wish that we could, because people be like, "How do I lose fat in my arms?" I'm like, "You can't." You know what
It
I mean?
doesn't
Not in
work
your
that.
arms specifically. You know, like you have to sort of just start to make those like just general changes to, you know, your lifestyle that will start to just make you lose fat in general. But what I actually focus on a lot is muscle building, so like because when you have higher amounts of muscle, and it's especially important when you get older, like metabolism wise, because the more muscle you have, the more calories that your body burns at rest. And you can build muscle in very spotted, targeted areas. So, like for somebody who is, you know, trans femme, we're like, okay, you're gonna hate the leg day I make for you. Your glute day is gonna suck real bad, but it's gonna be worth it. And so, if I were, you know, to work with you or someone in your situation, I would really be like, okay, we're gonna try and focus on you know, building up the muscle in the hips and even actually surprisingly a little bit in the back, which people don't really think of like why would I want my back to be any bigger? Because a lot of but
Right.
what can happen is like you can actually it's almost like an illusion where there's certain back muscles and if you try to sort of work on those, you get like almost like an hourglass kind of figure.
Hmm.
Because it's like your waist, people are like, oh my waist is like, well, if you make your back a little bit wider, then your waist might be a little bit look a little bit thinner and stuff like that, um, which is nice. So just like generally trying to work on like hitting the regular exercise targets, but specifically building muscle in areas that you want.
Now, see, when you say building muscle,
Mhm.
I got a little defensive because
Yeah.
I, not particularly, I don't have a lot of passing privilege.
Mhm.
I know what I look like, and the thought that I would want to build muscle gets me anxious. That I wouldn't
Yeah.
want to. I certainly wouldn't want to end up looking more masculine.
Oh, absolutely. I completely like I have definitely heard that sentiment quite a bit. And it's actually a sentiment that's shared by it's wild because that's a sentiment that's shared by cis women as well, but I feel like it's so much more real for trans women, especially that already feel like, passing is just very difficult. I wish that estrogen could do more for you know what I mean? There's so many things that I'm like, ugh, you know, it can only do so much. We're waiting on technology. What I would probably do in that situation is I always like to show videos and pictures of my favorite female bodybuilders.
Mm.
Because like especially back when I first got into like the fitness space, like there's some really badass, like muscular looking like female bodybuilders that just look really cool. And I'm like, see the areas in which they build muscle, like that's what we're trying to do. We're not trying to make you look like what I'm trying to look like. Like I specifically like outline, this is the anatomy and this is like what we're trying to work on. And I would hope that that would build a little bit of comfort, but I also totally understand it is like a valid fear to have.
When trans folks come to you, and maybe we should split this into what trans mask folks are looking for and trans
Mhm.
femme, but in general, what are the qualities? Not so much the particular workouts or the particular muscle groups that they're looking to
Mm.
work, but in terms of qualities, what what do they need? What do you provide that others wouldn't be able to know enough about?
I think that one of the biggest things that I can provide people is understanding and like an ear. And I think that like I always sometimes joke that like trainers are therapists. They're not therapists at all. But like when you spend like an hour or so a week with somebody every week and in a space where you're not on your phone and you can talk, like you learn a lot about that person and like I think like I like to think of myself as a very extroverted person and like just being able to like listen to like, a guy that's like, "Hey, I really don't like doing like Romanian deadlifts or this specific exercise because I feel like it makes me feel like makes me feel feminine to do that movement with my hips." And I'm like, I feel like not only can because anyone can validate, anyone can be like, oh, I hear what you're saying, but like, I understand because oftentimes I'm like, me too. You know what I mean? Like, me
Yeah.
too. I have also really felt that way. And I feel like it's really nice to help people not feel as alone. It makes me not feel as alone too. You know what I mean? And I think that's sort of a huge difference, like having like a peer instead of just somebody that feels kind of out of your circle.
Yeah, yeah. I like the analogy with with therapy though, because I've certainly been in enough therapy over the course of my life, but to get anything out of it, you really have to invest yourself, and it's hard work. It's
Yes.
you're going to go through a little bit of mental and emotional sweating when you meet with your therapist if you're going to make
Mhm.
progress, and same thing with the body. So I really like that analogy.
Yeah, and that's really like one of the hardest thing. Like the hardest thing is to get people to show up for themselves because, and a lot of times, sometimes like people are like, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't go to my meeting," or "I'm so sorry." I'm like, Don't apologize to me. Like it's not, I don't care. Like not that I don't care, I do care, but like I care because I want you to get where you want to go, and it's my job to remind you why you want to get there.
I was looking at your Instagram, and I
Yeah.
pulled a quote off there that I wanted to talk with you about. It was just a little while back, and I think it was for the new year. And you said
Mhm.
something about find motivation in discipline, which I was like, "Yep, I get it."
Yeah,
As
right.
somebody who was a runner, I understand that discipline. You get out there and you do it every day, regardless of how you feel, regardless of the weather.
Yeah.
But the second half, motivation out of passion instead of necessity and spite. What did you mean when you say motivation out of spite?
Oh yeah, I love this is very much reflective of where I am in my own personal life, honestly. Like I feel like I had like a very challenging time growing up, like with my mental health. I struggled a lot with mental health and I had just like a very turbulent like end of adolescence going through COVID. Like I moved out at like a very young age. And I always kind of was under the attitude of like, I need to do this for myself because I'm like, I was like, I have to do this. It was very much like negative though, or like it was like I need to go to the gym because I really hate what I look like, or like I need to go to the gym because I hate that I can't run a mile and it makes me feel weak. And like if I'm not stronger, I'm not masculine, and like just like a lot of negative self-talk, and like it drove me for a very, very long time. But then after, like you, I've been to a lot of therapy, and after, years of therapy and like not hating myself as much, I just almost got to this lull where I was like, well, I've achieved everything I kind of wanted to, and now I'm just kind of content, with my life. But I have more dreams, but I don't have like that negative voice in my head to like spur me forward. So it's been a weird adjustment to try and find positive reasons to keep going and chasing after my dreams, and it's a really hard adjustment.
I know that feeling. Um, I remember a time I used to be a teacher, and I was describing to one of my classes what had happened at a race I had just run recently, and one of my students said, 26 miles. Why would you do that to yourself?
Right? Yeah,
And
that's a long distance.
and I said, and it was one of those moments where you speak before you think, and I said, self-loathing and cookies.
Yes,
I was
yeah,
like,
that's uh-huh.
there's a degree of I do this uh, out of punishment or out of
Yeah.
trying to
Hmm.
prove that I'm strong enough, I'm good enough, I'm whatever enough. There's
Yep.
a part of me that
Hmm.
is punishing myself when I do this.
Yeah.
But also, if I work out this much, I get to eat all the cookies I want. So,
Yeah, that's also like a hard trade-off with food too, even like for me, it's like I've had like, disordered eating and stuff in the past too. And when it comes to like exercise, and it's like I very much like I don't parade around like I'm not a weight loss coach, but like I do talk to people a lot about their mindset around like food and exercise, because it's true, people will be like, "Oh yeah, like if I do this, I wanna exercise so I can eat what I want," or like I'm not eating what I want because I feel like I have to look like this. And it's just really difficult to get people to like enjoy the process of being in the gym rather than like just wanting the goal, because it's like that's extrinsic motivation. It's not really good.
right. Yeah, that extrinsic versus intrinsic. Yeah, I
Mhm.
very much, and I reached that as a runner. It became the part of the day that was my part of the day.
Yeah, exactly.
As opposed to all my obligations, and that became very important to me. But
Mhm.
that notion that I'm really beating myself up in some ways never went away either.
No, I definitely think I go back and forth too. Like I go back and forth, but of why I'm going. Some days I'm going because I'm super excited to like lift and like feel masculine and like get stronger. Some days I'm going because I put it on my calendar and it's just I feel impartial about it and it's just kind of there. And then some days I really, really don't want to go, but like maybe a friend drags me, or whatever it is. And sometimes it's very difficult, but it's a very a lot it's a lot of mental work, if anything.
4 arrows, 4 chances to do something miraculous. But choose carefully. The price is steep and the road gets dark. 4 Arrows, a new novel from Clare McCarthy, Chapter 1 in the Heart of the Fire series. Magical realism meets queer history. Available for pre-order now at Amazon.
Tell me a little bit about the journey. You were talking about COVID and leaving home, and where did the gender journey start for you?
Yeah, it's interesting because I have not been out for very long. I came out, it was actually, I almost came out on accident. On New Year's 2 years ago. So I guess it was 2024. The person I was dating at the time, I went to college up in Boston at Simmons University, which I love Simmons, but Simmons has such a high queer and trans population, like, and I had never been around trans people really at all, like growing up. Like not really. Like I think maybe if you asked me, before college, I may have met less than 10 trans people in my life. Which I don't know why, because I was always like I came out as, gay when I was 12 and I had always, been around a lot of queer people, but I feel like there wasn't a lot of like I don't know, I just didn't know a lot of trans people. So it was interesting when I got to Simmons, and because I was so masculine presenting, people would ask me my pronouns all the time. They'd be like, what are your pronouns? And I was like, oh, whatever. And then one day, I don't know what it was, but I was just like, oh, you can throw they in there. Like, whatever. Yeah, whatever. Like, that's neutral, so I don't care. I
Yeah.
kept being like, I don't care. So sure, if that's what you want to do. Um, and then eventually on a New Year's in 2024, my partner at the time was like, do you want to just use they pronouns? Because that's okay. And I was like, I mean, yeah, sure, I guess maybe that would be good. I was kind of like very like defensive about it. I was like, oh, okay, I guess, like whatever, sure. And I started crying and I didn't know why. And then
Mm.
um I actually just exclusively used like they them for an entire year, but I couldn't like stop the feeling that like there was more to it. And like as I
How
started
did they
to,
them feel? Because that's a change,
yeah,
particularly if you're
yeah,
still in the mindset of, a lesbian identity that causes some cognitive dissonance. So how did that feel?
yeah. And even I don't even identify as only liking women now. So that it's actually interesting. I think I've been bisexual my entire life, but I think, and this is actually, you might find this interesting, but the way that I explain it to people, because I really struggle with my sexuality too, is that I felt like in order to like men, I had to be a woman, which doesn't make any sense. But it almost gave me dysphoria to, even consider, and like made me feel demasculinized to even think about potentially liking men. So I like shut it off for the majority of my life. Yeah, so that was so I'm always like I always joke it was such a hard turn like growing up being like I was a masked lesbian for a very long time, and then it's like, oh, bisexual man, that's a hard left. And they always kind of felt like I always felt like I was kind of in limbo, like just for me personally, because I think that like in my heart, like I knew, but I was not ready to like accept anything. And so it kind of always felt like a limbo to me. And I think that for some people, that is exactly where they're supposed to land. But I just kind of felt like I'm trying to figure it out. I was like, I'm trying to figure out where I fit like on the spectrum, and I didn't really know.
Recently, I did an episode with an artist who put out two books titled Butch Heroes. It was actually Butch Heroes
Oh,
and
that's awesome.
Butch Heroes.
Yeah.
And we got to talking about that word, Butch, and it's
Yeah.
because it has such specific and meaningful connotations in the lesbian community.
Mhm.
But outside of that, it almost seems like a word that kind of can embrace more people than just that.
Oh yeah, I agree. I know multiple like non-binary people that identify as butch or still identify as lesbian. I think that like it's definitely like too narrow. It's nice that, things have started to like open up and, like that. There's too much gatekeeping for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you have to show your membership card to.
Yeah, exactly. Even like there's a group in Boston called Transmask Boston, and they like make it's really cool actually. I keep missing their events and I want to go, but it's literally like it's just like an organization of transmasked people that do events for, and it's like, but their first pinned post is like, who can go if you're transmasked? Like you don't have to be like anyone can go. Like this is for this community, but like it's an open space, and I thought it was cool that they had that posted.
So your journey sort of starts with sexual orientation, right?
Yeah.
For your and then because of the way other people are interpreting your presentation, you start questioning, could there be something more here?
Mhm.
So this wasn't something that was, like I mean, I often say that I knew who I was when I was still in my single digits. We just didn't have
Yeah.
vocabulary to express it. But I
Yeah.
knew. But so you're saying
Yeah.
your journey is different that way.
It was different. I didn't know. I guess it would have been 2025, but like January in 2025, I basically like I had asked my closest friends to use he for about a couple months, and then I kind of realized that like that's really what I identified with. So it was very scary, but I sort of like made the jump to fully come out as like a trans man, it was like basically 1 year ago. And the reason that sort of led me to that is when I looked back, like at the earlier parts of my life, there was just a whole lot of things that I couldn't explain with anything else. Like there was a whole lot of things, like for example, like I remember like shopping was like my absolute worst nightmare, and like I would just cry. But it wasn't, and I used to think it was because I was like uncomfortable with my weight, but it wasn't that. I think I could have been like the prettiest girl in the world and like it wouldn't have mattered, you know? And like there was like so many signs, like even like I used to like it's so stupid, like I used to pee standing up. Like what like that like you know,
Wow.
right, it's like what like or like even I remember there was like a very specific moment where I like when I was 12, like when I was still very young, I like flipped my hair over in a ponytail and put a hat on, and I looked in the mirror and I was like, could I possibly be trans? And I was like, no one else would like that. And that feels like a lot of stress. So, no. I just kind of shut it down.
Isn't it amazing how clothes do that?
Oh my God, yeah.
When you're first starting to sort things out, you know, clothes can either really make things click for you. It's like, yeah, this is what fits,
Mhm.
or that just play right into that gender dysphoria. And clothes shopping for kids and for
Mhm.
teenagers is such a fraught thing to begin with.
Oh yeah, it was a nightmare. Like it was just a nightmare because like I didn't even want to look at myself. So like and I just didn't know why. Like I didn't know why and it just made so much sense. But like when like I was just like I didn't even want to think about like I had some friends that were like why don't we try and like find a style that you like. I'm like I don't even want like I don't even want to look at it. Like I don't even want to think about it. Like I couldn't even like there was like a year where I only wore stripes. Like I don't know why. That was just what I decided on. The next year, I only wore three set sweatshirts on like a cycle. Like I had a very hard time with that.
I think one of the points where you realize I am getting healthier is when it moves beyond clothing to, okay, this is my body,
Yeah,
and I'm going to deal with this now, which kind of brings us full circle to the training thing, right? It's that
exactly. Yes, it definitely like training and like training really was because like when I first started exercising, I didn't present masculine. I actually still presented kind of feminine. I kind of like boomerang back for a second. And when I first started to like build muscle, because I've been exercising now and weightlifting for like 6 years, and like when I first started weightlifting, and I started to like look, you know, bigger. It just brought me like so much joy, and it's almost like the muscles preceded my clothes. Like it was like I started to build the upper body, and then it like was like a gateway drug into wanting to like change my look. One of my biggest, actually, this is an interesting controversy, is that like there's a lot of because sometimes cis men will hop on testosterone in bodybuilding to, you know, as like a steroid to like beef their muscle. So, and there it's called like natty or natural. Like if you're not on testosterone, if you're not on like TRT or testosterone replacement therapy as a cis man, like it's like, are you natural or not? And sometimes they'll be like, are trans men natural? Like because our testosterone levels are that of a regular, you know, cis man. So it's a very funny debate, actually. It's like I don't know. I don't have an
yeah,
answer.
well, it speaks to how anything having to do with transness or gender
Mhm.
expansiveness in general, all of it is nuanced and complex, and this
Yes,
idea that things can be reduced to just a simple thing,
is so wrong.
it's
Is that
silly. Yeah,
yeah, especially like sports. Sports is one of those things that like I like as someone in the exercise science space, it like infuriates me because everyone wants to make it a political issue and not like an exercise science issue, which is something that like very few people are actually educated on it. Like I was speaking to a trans man who has a PhD in Georgia and he wanted to make his dissertation doing research on trans athletes, and guess what? He couldn't get funding.
of
It's
course
like
not.
how could he not get funding for this thing that's all over the news? You know what I mean? But it's like no, but they don't actually care. You know, they don't actually care about the science behind it. They just want to like make claims.
Right. We need to move the base, and the base responds to
Mhm.
fear and to othering. So let's do that.
Exactly. That's terrible. Yeah, 'cause especially as someone who like I played sports through college. Like I actually did play on the women's team, even though I was on testosterone because I liked the way that my school handled it. I feel like they did a good job. I had the option to play on the men's team, but my dilemma is that I play rugby and
Mm.
rugby is a contact sport, like full contact, like, you know, football, no helmets.
Yeah.
And as much as I would have loved to at that point in my transition, like play on the men's team, like I am 5'4" and 150 pounds, and I have a disability that really impacts my ability to do a lot of things. And so it was like, and trust me, it's some of the rugby women do not mess around. Like I had no advantage. I was bouncing off them. There was no advantage given. HRT, like it was not helping me that much. Um, but but I had the choice to play in the men's team, which I think is just so important. And if I had been in college, like I was only on HRT for like 6 months in college while playing, because so otherwise I would have transferred like into the men's team.
You had mentioned when we were setting this up that you have Paget-Schroeder syndrome,
Yes.
which is chronic pain of some sort, right? It's
Yeah, kind of. It's so Paget-Schroeder syndrome. So it's more common, like parent syndrome is called thoracic outlet syndrome, which is basically where your clavicle, your scalene or your neck muscles, and your first rib, they create this like triangle where the blood supply and nerves to your upper limbs go through, and it's like a window, and it's like my window is like too narrow. So Paget-Schroeder syndrome is actually triggered by exercise. So it's something that I probably was born with, but like unless you like usually like MLB, like people will get it or like people that actively do sports their whole lives. And so basically I used to be a boxer and I traumatized the area a lot and it crushed it's like the second or third vein that comes out of the heart to the
mm,
arm. So
wow.
the blood just got trapped in my arm and I got like multiple blood clots. So they had to remove both of my ribs. But what causes me chronic pain is actually on my right side. They partially paralyzed a nerve that is the only nerve, unfortunately. It's like a horrible system. Like you only have one nerve that goes to this muscle. It's called the serratus, and it's the muscle that looks like fish gills on your side. It's
Okay.
really more important than people think. But so mine was partially paralyzed, and it's caused the shoulder is really delicate. So like if anything gets thrown out of shape, it just like the whole thing has to compensate. So that's what causes me a lot of chronic pain.
Is that something that physical therapy can do anything about, or is that just
Yeah, there.
congratulations, you get this for the rest of your life?
Well, it's kind of like congratulations, but you just have this thing now. I've been in physical. I love my physical therapist. I've been in physical. Yeah. Shout out to they're actually very good with like queer community, but the physical therapy and sports medicines in Westbrook, they have a protocol for it to try and what you have to do is you have to stretch. It's horrible for it's also interesting because it's not great for trans people. Like I couldn't wear binders. I can't wear binders before I got top surgery anymore, which was tough because I had to try and not like hunch my posture because I couldn't make that space any more narrow than it was. So my tight pec muscles and my weak back, my mid back was weak. So all of the protocols to try and like loosen up the neck and the chest and then strengthen the back to sort of like bring that shoulder back, which is not great for a dysphoric trans man, you know.
Right.
But it did teach me a lot about postural training and all of that kind of stuff, which is cool. And so my pain is definitely a lot better than it used to be, but I have to do maintenance for it for the rest of my life. Like I'll have to be doing my physical therapy and the massages and treatments like pretty much my whole life.
I mean, as you're describing that, I was thinking about because we were talking about how uh, trans mask folks who are early on and still feeling really dysphoric will kind of lean in and hunch over,
Yeah.
but cis guys, especially gym culture cis
Hmm.
guys, they lead with their chests.
Yes, they
They,
do.
even that stereotypical chest bump thing, right? Where
Yes, they
that's
absolutely. Yeah, and it's so funny because like I look at like I don't see the posture that I have in a lot of like the bodybuilder, like aesthetic type of men that you see in the gym, because it's meant to be like, you're supposed to be broad. So like they're actually supposed to sort of like spread out more. But where you do see that posture, and this is interesting, is in like MMA athletes. MMA athletes and boxers have very rounded shoulders. If you ever look at them, they have that posture, and that's kind of interesting. But most regular gym goers, like the men, like it's actually more broad.
Tell people, first of all, where they can find you and how they can get a hold of these services.
Yeah, okay. So, like I said, my name is Aleia, but my username for pretty much everything is mascfitlab. It's also the name of my training business, but it's how you find me on Instagram, TikTok. I don't have Facebook. Maybe I have Facebook. I don't know. I don't use it though. So it's MAS.
That's for old people, Aleia.
Yeah. Well, no, I feel old because I can't figure out how to use it. But it's MASCFITLAB. So mascfitlab, and then it's just mascfitlab@gmail.com. And if you go to my social media, I do free consults, and you can schedule those. The link is just in my bio.
All right. Last one's a philosophical question.
Okay, I love those.
So somewhere out there listening to this right now, hopefully there are lots of them, but there are some trans folks, some non-binary folks who are coming off that new year thinking, you know what, I need to do something about getting more fit, more in shape. Tell them what they need to know.
I would say that my biggest piece of advice for them is that consistency is more important than anything else. Like anything, literally anything, consistency and showing up is more important than all of the knowledge in the world. Obviously that's great. I don't want you to have bad form. You know, every exercise can be a back exercise if you do bad enough, but like, so obviously knowledge and all that stuff is important, but like showing up and forming the habit is the most important part. Even if it's just like, I tell my clients, like, even if you're starting in the gym, it's going to be really intimidating. Like, just go and walk on the treadmill for 5 minutes and then you can leave. You know what I mean? Like, just go and do anything, even just like sitting in that space for like a period of time to like get used to it, or like go sit near your weights. Like, just trying to show up consistently and being in that mindset is going to bring you much farther than, you know, having the nicest workout clothes, or, you know, having all of the knowledge beforehand, because you can learn as you go. So that's probably my biggest piece of advice. And figure out why you're doing it, and then you have to remind yourself of that constantly. Make it your phone background, put it on your wall. Like, you have to make it you have to remind yourself, you know, especially, you know, the third week when you don't want to do it anymore.
If you enjoyed today's episode, and I hope you did, check out some of our thematically related episodes from the archives. Episode 62 is with wrestler, MMA fighter, and trans man Mac Beggs. I met Aleia through the programming at Prism Counseling, who guested on episode 82. And Aleia, I hope he won't mind my saying this, has worked with voice coach and reigning Miss Constitution State, Krista Steiner, who appeared in episode 111. Hope to see you all at Middletown Pride in 2 weeks. Let's hope we avoid the torrential rainstorm of last year. This has been Transqat. I'm Clare McCarthy. Thank you for listening, and let's talk soon.
This is Sadie McCarthy. I'm Claire's niece.
And you've just been listening to Transqat. It is made by one of my favorite people in the world, Clare McCarthy.
Transqat is a production of Transqat Enterprises, LLC.
Copyright 2023, all rights reserved.
Join us on the web at transqat.com.
That's TRANSQAT.com.
QAT.com.
QAT.com.
There you'll find links to Transqat, the blog,
writing projects,
speaking engagements,
and our PayPal donations page.
Please consider supporting our mission with your monkeys.
Monies.
Your monies.
Your monies.
Not monkeys.
Please consider supporting our mission with your monies. Any monkeys will be gratefully received as well.
Follow Transqat on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube.
On TikTok, we are at The Real Transqat.
Want to tell your story on air?
Or ask Claire a question?
What is the deal?
She has all the answers.
Or suggest a guest or topic for an upcoming episode.
Use the contact page at the website
or email her directly at crmtranscat@gmail.com.
crmtranscat@gmail.com.
And Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you for listening.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening. Bye.